So you were very productive those few years. So that's 92. 94, you wrote another short play called Heaven 2, about real estate. And the most wonderful line was the opening, when Mrs. Wong said, "God in heaven, please let me get to heaven." And everybody thought that was a prayer, but actually heaven is a new condo. Yeah, so so this is typical classic Michael Chiang. That will give you that twist in the end and call it as it is. Condo is now pricier than heaven, right? So tell us through that. So what did that come about? Was real estate a very hot topic back then? Or it still is now, but
they wanted to do a collection of my plays, Night Out with Michael Chiang. So I only had 2 short plays, which were Beauty Box and Love Production. So I thought, okay, I can write a new piece, 45 minutes. So we watched the 2 short plays before intermission, and then after we watched the play. Back then, property prices were like go through the roof, but nothing like today. And then the COE was also quite a big topic. So people were watching COE prices. So I thought, okay, what if I extended the idea? What if you needed the COE to buy an apartment? You know, buy the COE first before you qualify to get the apartment. So that was the starting point. And then I thought, okay, let's push it further. Everybody wants to live in District 10. What if this really exclusive condo called Heaven you can't afford? But because the citizens are clamoring, saying, we never get a chance to live in District 10, the government decides, okay, for the new phase 2, which is Heaven 2, you must set aside 1 unit in that condo to be open to the rest of Singapore to buy. But you need to get a COE first. Okay? So that was the premise. So the whole idea is the audience becomes the residents of Heaven. So all of you sitting in the audience are living in the condo called Heaven. And on stage, there's 3 couples that are shortlisted through this process, and you have to decide which of these 3 couples you're allowed to buy in your condo. Okay? So it's about judging, it's about status, it's about are they good enough to be my neighbors. So I was playing on all that. It is quite a wicked play.
Yes, it is. And it predates all the reality TV talent shows where people call in to vote off and so on and so forth, which is really quite amazing. So that piece, were you happy with how it turned out in the end? The way that it was staged, and what was your reaction to the actual staging?
No, I was very happy with it. Again, there was a shift in the tone because it starts off funny, just laugh. So, and we have these 3 couples. One is the typical, apartment couple, civil servant and the wife, and then we have this yuppie couple, very stylish, and then you have this odd pair. You have 2 pop stars, these 2 girls who are quite well known in Singapore. So the 3 of them end up trying to buy this apartment. So it starts with a silly person. So it's like a reality show. And the host was Nora, who plays the host, and she has 2 assistants called frankincense and Nora. So the whole thing is heaven-based.
Yes.
And Nora keeps saying, "Welcome to heaven," and this guy will always say, "2." He only says 1 word through the whole show.
That's frankincense, right? Welcome to heaven 2.
So in the process, you get asked to be questions like spell Louis Vuitton. So of course, the yuppies can spell, the pop stars can spell, but the HDB couple are struggling with that. It's like UIPI. It's just wicked things like this. So it's funny all this, and then comes to the point when
they have to decide, right?
They have to decide. There's a twist. So the audience is kind of liking these people, and they sound very nice, they seem very good. And then it's just someone comes on stage to tell them why all of you should not let this person come to heaven. So it could be somebody who's wronged them, somebody who's been abused by them, and then everything becomes a bit dark. I remember Echo Chan meeting me after the show, telling me, Michael, your play, it's strong, right? I think I was a bit stunned because he didn't expect me to put in that little twist, because it became a bit couple. Yes, because there's the maid that accuses the young couple of saying that you think they're very nice and very good looking, but they're actually quite nasty to me. They're not nice to me, they treat me badly, they deny me. So, and it rattles the audience. The audience suddenly feels a bit uncomfortable. And then the voting process again is the audience then has to vote, but there's A, B, or C. And it changes depending on the audience. Some people just you condone adultery, but one of them is a sculpture. One of them mistreats the maid, and the last one it's just not a nice person in the office. So you have the audience kind of trying to decide, which is the worst sin. So it's again about heaven, it's about sin, so you get through the world.
You have a knack of really hitting on issues that are still ongoing: property prices, consumerism, people lacking in kindness. So I want to focus on the next one because I see these three plays as your dark plays. Yeah? Because they all have a certain element. I wouldn't call them sinister or menacing, but they always have a very dark twist. And I think the darkest one, that's why it says Mortal Sins, which at the time everybody was anticipating because it was from the team who brought you Beauty World Cha-Cha-Cha comes Mortal Sins. They were in for a rude shock because Mortal Sins was nothing like Beauty World, even though the same people were there. So to cut a long story short, Mortal Sins is about the head of the censors traveling back to time to meet a stripper. So if you want to know, you have to read the play. So tell us how how did that come about? How did the Mortal Sins, did you feel that, okay, I'm ready to work with Najib, Ken San, Ding musicals,
it's kind of that way. We sort of decided time to do another musical. Let's get myself, get Kingston to direct, and Najib to choreograph. But we didn't really have an idea. I wanted to play about Rose Chiang, the stripper. She's a 60s stripper back then. So I started doing research on her. I wanted to do her story. And then I found out she had survived this movie. Her family was still around. And I thought, a bit awkward. I didn't want to visualize some of these slides and the daughter sitting in the audience. It's just like, it didn't feel right. So, but I still like the idea of the 60s stripper. I was fascinated about Singapore covering up, like, we were banning things with all this R-rated stuff going on. And I thought, maybe way back then it was easier because we actually allowed striptease shows. It was a lot more lax. So I thought, okay, how do I compare the two? How do I compare Singapore then in the 60s versus Singapore now, which is 90s? I thought, okay, what if I make one character the head of the censorship board? So she's quite frigid, very anal and very uptight, and she's just banning everything inside, just stopping everything from being performed, especially the arts. You cannot allow this person on stage, you cannot do this. It's always no. And people had expected more because she's a woman, the first woman. So I also want to play on this gender expectations that is a woman expected to be more lenient because she's a woman. So I thought, okay, let's play all the stereotypes first. So I thought, okay, we have this character who's very strict. What if she encounters a really innocent girl who makes a living stripping for men? So I thought, okay, let's do a time travel thing. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I wrote it anyway. So I thought, okay, she's going to fall asleep and she's going to travel back in time. So we can see the bridge at the Kallang Theatre. Yeah. So she walks across this bridge and she goes back to 1965 and she meets a stripper. And then this relationship starts. So once I started that idea, then I plotted the story.
So how does it work when you work on a musical? Did you just write the book first and then pass it on to the composer, the librettist, which the same person, right? They wrote both the lyrics in. So what was the process like?
It was different with video. Like video, we would do really almost weekend by weekend. So they started with the song. We knew the song. We played the song today. This musical must have this song in. I just knew the chords and how it can sound. So I think we would start with the cabaret scene. And then I write the story, and I come back to him and say, well, this scene, can you put a song in? Or he'll say, this song can you fit in? So it worked quite organically that way. With Mortal Sins, it's slightly different. I think I kind of plotted the story first, and then we decided where the songs would go. And he said he wanted a very upbeat number with like people marching. So let's try and fit it in. I told him I wanted song because at the point it was Jackie Chan's song, where it started with this old record playing, and then he sings. So I played it and said, can we do the same thing? I just want the opening bar to be in Mandarin, played on a spreadsheet record, and then it starts with the actual song. So I got one of my staff who used to compose the lyrics, to write the lyrics, so particularly when we had the lyrics down, and that was the title song for it. And that was performed by the strictly artists, and then later at the close of the show. So slightly different format for Waterson's process.
So I'm just going to close this section by saying, just asking you a few questions. You always, when the plays get a revival or restage, and they get restaged quite a lot, you update them. Is there any play of your 10 that you would revise and maybe rewrite?
Kind of been there, done that with pretty well. That was one that's I think the biggest rewrite, the last version of what I said. The truth is, back when we first staged it, we didn't really have a very strong cast of singers. We had a lot of actors. And Dick had written a lot of songs, but the lead actress, Claire, is not a singer, but she's a great actress. So she only had one song in the entire show. Jacinta, on the other hand, is a great singer, but she was a side character. She wasn't actually instrumental to the plot itself. But she had the best song. She sang the Love Ballad, she sang the Single in Singapore, she sang the duet with Christina on. So she had, I think, 4 songs. So when it came to 2008, so Dick said, okay, now we actually have to have her that can sing. Shall we fix it? So I said, sure. So what Dick did, and of course working for us, we decided to change the balance. So meaning the protagonist had 4 songs. We trimmed those songs. And then I thought, I'm going to do that, so change the scenes. I added scenes where the bouncer has more scenes with Ivy. And I enjoyed the process very much. Being able to rework it and make it more logical. Because we had limitations back in those days. Because we couldn't do certain things for certain reasons. But this time around, 20 years on, we decided, okay, let's try and adjust all this. And that's the version that's actually works.
Okay, so is there any of your plays that you would write a sequel?
No. I've been asked to write a sequel to many times. But I'd rather let Malcolm stay where he is.
Okay. So I'm just going to open it up to the audience right now. Do you have anything for Michael? Yes.
I'd like to know how he chooses his subject matter.
Depends on what I see around me. Because when it came to Made Signals, it was really SDU. SDU had started, I think, in the mid-80s. But for some reason, it kept going on. I think 5 years on, we were still talking about, guess what, my sister joined SDU. It was still quite a hot topic, the water coolers in the office. So I thought people are still talking about it. So why not make this the subject? So we started from there. And that was one of my most manic things.
So it seems you choose things that you want to satirise in some way.
I do try and find subjects that people are either interested in or talking about. So I'm quite conscious of what's going on
Or
at that
perhaps
moment.
that there's some kind of myth about something in society and you're trying to expose the myth.
Not consciously. I just find a topic which I figure people recognize. So to me, it shortcuts the journey. So if they walk in and they understand the topic, they understand the references, I really want to cover it. And if the characters can echo what they feel or seem familiar, I kind of got the audience in the back. I try not to make them I try not to make subjects or the characters obscure.
So for those of you who don't know, SDU is Social Development Unit, which is the national matchmaking organization that came out in the 80s that felt that, single men and single women were not getting married and the government should intervene, as it does. As you do, right? So, yes, yes it does, but it's much more sophisticated now. So I think, again, thanks for bringing that up, because a lot of the times, although you don't do it intentionally, you do find something that you inherently think it's a bit ridiculous and ludicrous It says, how can this happen? And then you just say, well, if it's ludicrous and ridiculous, let's just really make it ludicrous and ridiculous and send it out. So I think that is your kind of satire and your kind of work, which doesn't always go down very well, because again, you've said it yourself, you get characters that are not obscure. People step in and know exactly what you're talking about. It's topical, right? It's current, right? So it doesn't seem to a lot of people, or to a lot of the critics, they don't see it as something that has any significance whatsoever, because it's just laugh a minute, send out. And you've had quite a few critics who have said that, you do very lightweight shows, and one of the things is that they often associate this is having Chiang. Right? One is left with the wish that Chiang will venture beyond caricatures after mixed signals, coming up with the sense of harmonious beautiful. 3 would be a nice number to stop. Yeah. So this is like these caricatures that you do, these stereotypes that you do. So obviously this was pre-private parts, which you showed them, right? Which you could. But this thing about constantly being criticized for writing caricatures and all, how do you respond to that? How do you respond to people say that, it's my child don't know how to write characters, only write these caricatures, these stereotypes?
It's true. No, I write what comes to me. I don't think my characters are contrived. That's because, if I look talking happening, it comes from this part of town. He talks like this, he walks like this, this is what he worries about. It's just very easy to write. So, and again, it's about familiarity. Because when he walks on stage, he just has to pull out the comb, squat in the corner, and get it. You don't have to explain where he's from, what he's doing. You just get it. It's stuff that you see once in a while. That's what I'm proud of, just because this is simple. This is the way we talk, it's the way we do it, it's the way we this is what we like doing on stage.
Well, the next one is a play about a shy school teacher who gets a cosmetic new life when she's hit by temperatures that has not aged well. So Sharon Lowe, 1997, jokes that SDU are no longer topical. What do you think?
It's a revival. It's a new production. I can't remember how many years on. To me, the premise still holds. It's really about finding true love. And maybe the SDU is not as topical, it's not as fresh, but I look beyond that. To me, that was the framework for play. And to me, it's the work. And I think the audience do it.
Yeah, it's true. Then, of course, the famous kind of Pandian special production that should not close into every person in this country has seen. That movie was quite a phenomenal production in 1992. But in its subsequent revival, right, the main problem was that the script was dated wildly from comedy to angst. The easy laughs made the transition to more serious matters difficult. The entertainment was definitely there, but as far as education went, and I don't even know why education, the parts were lacking. So, how do you respond to like reviews where they often, I feel, demand your plays to do more than what they're meant to do, or what they were designed to do? They seem to want. Are you flattered that they think so highly of me, they think I should do this, or they just keep wanting to extract more potency from your plays and they always lash out on you when you don't? How do you respond to that?
I learned to shut down. I think when it first started, I was really quite embarrassed that you get such a horrible write-up. But after a while, by the third, I did the year though. I'm so sad now. They asked me to write more, they're restaging my plays, okay, never mind. I read some, do something. So I become less thin-skinned about it.
Good thing to have for a playwright in Singapore.
Actually, I'm more concerned with the cast. Usually, I get very depressed when the cast gets attacked, like gets singled out, because then it affects the mood of the show. But for me, I think it's not going to kill the box office.
Next review is from mystical living. And I quote, the script is no longer that laugh a minute escape, music is no longer pop formulaic, the dancing is no longer lyrical, the direction no longer picture pretty. I think that about time sums up how dark that musical. We'll talk a little bit about that. So, if you were to pitch it to a movie person, says it's a musical about censorship. Okay, you can write a musical about censorship, or a type of censorship that goes back into strippers. It's not going to fly, right? And of course, a lot of the times there is some problems about the likeness of the genre of the musical with a topic that is really, not that you can't write dark musicals. Stephen Sondheim is writing musicals that are very dark all his life. But this particular topic, do you think that that it balanced out well? That do you think that the music, the staging, the text, the script, do you think that it kind of worked together, or was it not quite there, the concept and everything?
I think when we were doing it, when we were rehearsing at Fort Canning, I was quite excited because I thought this is very, very different from what we've done before. It's very different from the shows I've seen, because I actually watched a lot of shows on West End and Broadway, and I figured this is actually quite groundbreaking because it wasn't a typical musical. It was very dark, and Kingston was doing strange things. He was showing people with black makeup walking around and with umbrellas, black umbrellas. So, but I was also excited. I thought this is new, this is quite challenging. That's what it was. On hindsight, and probably one of my favorite scripts. I like the script very much. And I would like to see stage actually as a play without music, without that song. Because I feel that, I thought sometimes maybe the songs slow down the storyline.
Okay. So we come down to your play, the most staged and revived play. I think this is one. When a hugely popular comedy persists in ratifying such stereotypes to squeeze comedy out of them, one must question what makes the mainstream tick and what makes them artists. Yeah. So again, same question, stereotypes and everything. Well, your approach to stereotypes, you said it exists, I'm bringing them out. The audience recognizes them as stereotypes, never see them as any deep character. But when you use stereotypes, is it to validate kind of a local context, or that it's Singaporean, or is it really to use them to pit off each other for bigger issues or things about their lives? Or it's just, what is the strategy of using stereotypes apart from is there any?
For me, it's about the celebration of being Singapore. I just figure you go into the army and you come from a middle class family. It's probably one and only time you get to meet really different walks of life. I don't think many of us who studied at ACS will get a chance to see the same bound from this boy who studied up to maybe second and dropped out working as a laborer now. It's just completely different backgrounds, and I found that fascinating. We just became friends. It didn't matter that we speak as well as you. We didn't come in the same neighborhood as you. And I wanted to celebrate that. It's really, this is the way they speak, this is the way, and I loved everybody. It wasn't like, Melvin Phillip is the hero and all the rest of that. That wasn't the idea. Really about just this, all of us 18 years old. All of us are going through this thing for the first time. We don't know what it's like. We was out there, we would see these things. We come down with pajamas, the other one puts camouflage, with flowers. Everybody does something simple. That was the idea. I just wanted to really go down to having a bit of fun, celebrating differences, and becoming friends at the end, despite that was just the idea. I just wanted a fun piece. It's a story that spans 3 months. It wasn't a lifelong history of friendships. And at the end of it, they admit that we tried to remain friends, but none of us saw each other again. So it's just a little chapter in life that we all go through.
One of the reviews for the 2012 revival, Miyu So from the Business Times says, interestingly, playwright Chiang attempts to address some public concerns about national service with his updated script. Both get their own both get their own new jokes, even songs which they feel somewhat extraneous to their otherwise jocular proceedings on stage, or at least not quite fully integrated into the play. So obviously there were elements added on to this particular revival, songs, song and dance, music elements. When that comes into one of the places, like one of the classic places in the whole army days, how did you react to that? You know, there were all these bigger numbers, song and dance that was thrown into it.
I actually enjoyed this particular production very much. I felt it was well paced. This it performed so many times, so the scene in the movie. So most people came in kind of knowing what to expect. And I think we kind of surprised them with the pace. It was a very fast paced script, paced production. I think the songs helped. It just gave a lift to the 5-year scenes, and then I turned the sergeant into a woman. I gave City the role of sergeant. So it was fun. I just thought I'd be the energy change for this production. So I like it.
And we're going to end with Robert Yeo having the last word. His 1988 review of Beauty World is entitled Something to Celebrate, a landmark musical. Michael Chiang's script and his creation of scenes from black and white Hong Kong melodrama movies and lovable stock characters, the right mix of involvement and distance. Here, fun is the criteria. And I think that quite aptly sums up a lot of your plays, which is the right mix of involvement and distance and fun. So, and that I think really is characterizes the work that you have written, and I can only say that we look forward to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16th play. And with that, thank you very much, Michael Chiang, for coming to the